Welcome, everybody. I'm Phil, also known as the Transit Guy over at CBS. I'm excited about the upcoming release of the out-of-home ratings for transit. It's something that has been very important to all of us in the transit industry. We didn't want to be left behind. We wanted to feel like we had all the material and data that all of our brethren in the industry have. So we're just really excited to be here at this point. There are many things continuing to evolve in the transit area that are really positive. Ridership across the country continues to grow. I think many in your newspapers, you constantly see references about transit ridership continuing to grow. You know, obviously, traffic on the highways continues to increase. That does push people into considering the option to join in the public transportation method of getting to and from work. Gas prices have shown to have a clear effect on ridership on transit, and generally they've continued to show an upward trend. Mobile devices have allowed for more productive time while riding. It gives you another reason to perhaps be on the train in the morning. You can continue to work. Creative use of the space continues to thrive. The vendors continually trot out new kinds, new formats, new sizes. The captive media like car cards and things like that have given us platform posters, give us more dwell time, chances for engagement, that we can use technology like NFC, QR codes, Bluetooth, any of the emerging technologies where people are dwelling. It gives us an opportunity to apply them and get us involved with more engaging kinds of things. So these are all positives that help our selling efforts, even not having all the robust numbers we'd like. The industry's currently at about 11% of the pie of total out-of-home spend. That's around $770 million. It's a sizable number, good number. I think it's especially important when you consider that a majority of that number, of that spend, of the $770 million, comes from most of the top 25 markets. So actually the share of pie kind of the total out-of-home in those bigger markets is sizably a lot bigger. And that makes it really essential that you as buyers as well as sellers really understand what impact it's having in the plans that you're placing it in. So it's been frustrating for all of us not to have all the data until now. Our agency and partner clients need and they want it, and now they're going to be getting it. They want to know what the viewership is, especially on bus exteriors. This is information that we've been using. Previous research is decades old. It's not very robust. It was often frustrating for me. I know many faces out here in the audience would say, hey, Phil, what's up with those numbers? What do they mean? Are they real? How big are they? Can I believe them? These are all frank conversations that we had to get through. And so this is really great to be at a place where we can move on from some of those conversations and really provide more data that's been backed up by robust research of the TAB and other places. So we're really committed as vendors, all of us, to the new standard of measurement in transit. We really wanted it, and I know that the agencies and advertisers identified it, as I said, as a top priority to get. So we pushed for inclusion on measurement, and now we're finally here. So we're excited to find out more about how our medium impacts consumers, and I say that because we're going to find out more. We don't know everything we're going to know shortly when the numbers are released, and it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. CBS and Titan got behind initial funding for the project, and I will tell you now we're up to 115 systems that are represented by funding. And we have funders as diverse as Around AV out of Encino, Ferry Ads in New York, Direct Media out of Hingham, Capital Metropolitan District in Austin, Carta Charleston, Vector in New York, Van Wagner, Lamar, Clear Channel, and JC Deco. So we've got large group, well represented through the industry, all down through the top markets. And at a minimum, we wanted these ratings so we could be on similar footing, as I said, with our brethren. So buyers now can more seamlessly use transit and appropriately generate the reach and frequencies and integrate them into the plan so they can really see what the whole plan is doing. And we can stop working with two sets of numbers. Some numbers as out-of-home ratings and others as transit circulation. We can let that go. So often creative you know, initiates and drives out of home, especially with some of our products like station dominations and wraps. Those are fun, they're obvious, they're visible, and they're intuitive. But now, you know, we can enter some input. And you know, what does it drive in terms of audience? And that's going to be fantastic. So you add that to the creative and emotional core of the messaging these vehicles are going to deliver, and I think that's going to help all of us support transit recommendations. APTA, the American Public Transit Association, is the leading force in advancing public transit. It's basically an association of transit authorities. So those are, you know, that's my client. That's what we use. They have all the core data. They run these transit systems. So the members are all transit authority people. And the APA, they want to drive revenues. They really need them. They need every dollar they can get to keep that fare box low. And so with an eye to that, they provided support for all these initiatives and across all markets. They want to be running advertising revenues down deep into, you know, 100 markets deep, just not into the top markets. So their position resulted in them wanting and supporting a credible audience measurement system. So working in conjunction with the government, they set up the Transit Cooperative Research Program, or the TCRP. And that was launched to create audience measurement guidelines that would help the buyers of transit understand what the audience was. These grants and initiatives aligned right where we all were, and you know, where the TAB was going with out-of-home ratings initiatives. So you know, they helped with some of this funding. So TAB responded, because the government put a grant out there, to the TCRP, an open RFP, to develop audience measurement, and they won it. And they put all of us on a perfect partnership to get this data and research completed. So that's where some of the seed money came before it was matched by the vendor money. The transit authorities have a ton of data. Generally, they've kept much of it to themselves, but now they're in partnership with the TAB and us. The access to that information is now available and used, so the researchers and methodologies can really get at the core of what's happening. So the TAB took those guidelines, embraced them, and has used their experience to create the full picture of what transit viewership is. As buyers, there'll be much more data. We're going to have buys by bus depot and neighborhood, by rail station, by line, by different sizes and shapes. This is all information we really haven't had before. It's going to be really interesting and fun. I'm excited about it. You know, I know generally, I believe we'll continue to sell in the manner we do today. I think many assumptions we've made about our medium will be proven to be true, but I think we're going to be surprised, and there are going to be some things that aren't what we thought they were. And I think there are going to be new packages that the buyers are going to say, hey, what about this? And why can't I do that? And we'll make adjustments. And I look at it as that's opportunity. When you have data and you can change and you can do new things, you can bring in new clients. So I'm really excited about it. And with that, I'm going to introduce Jeff so he can come up and talk about what this research means.
The research-only phase of this project is done. And now we are ready to start releasing markets for industry review. There will be a summary of a release schedule that Dave Etherington will go through, and it'll be an opportunity for all of us to see the thousands of numbers that are going to be launched upon us and understand them. The best way to describe this at 500 feet is in three different buckets: circulation demographics, visibility, and exactly how the data are going to be out there for us to review. Circulation is simply the amount of people that are around and able to see each transit ad as it goes by. Pretty basic stuff, but there's a real challenge here, which is, in this case, not only are the people moving, but the ads are moving too. And we've got to figure out when the people and the ads intersect. The second challenge is that each transit system in each market is very different. They have different footprints, they have different sizes and shapes of rail cars, different bus lines, different types of buses, different ad formats, different names for those ad formats, and on and on and on. The collection of circulation data was developed by People Count. Where's People Count? There they are, over there. And a lot of the work that they've done with us under the auspices of the technical committee is really a lot of brute force. As Phil stated earlier, the amount of data that we have to collect is enormous, and getting it all straight has been a challenge. But we are happy to say that that challenge is largely behind us. Let me give you an example of what kind of challenge this has been. One of the areas we're measuring are exterior buses. So all of the different ad types around an exterior side of a bus. So we have to know, in order just to get to circulation, how many buses there are in each market, where each bus is at all times, where all of the stations are, the exact bus schedule. We have to calculate how much time it takes for each bus to get from point A to point B. And then finally, we need to calculate who is around to see that bus as it rolls by. It's a mountain of data. And that covers circulation. The other part of this equation is demographics. So what we do there is we take all of the circulation and we divide it up into the different demographic groups. This is something we have a lot of practice with our original introduction of traditional out-of-home ratings, and it involves the use of Census Bureau, in particular the American Community Survey and the National Household Transportation Survey. Put together equals about 3 to 5 million respondents that are telling us where they live and where they go. And then we feed all of that information into the system. So the important thing there is all of the information we're using for demographics and how people get around are local to your market. We're not figuring all this out in Chicago and trying to tell Phoenix what to do. It's all data that you have locally in your market. The next thing that we cover is visibility. So once you have circulation and the demographics, you're not there yet. Our industry, we like to measure whether somebody actually sees the ad. And this is where the visibility component comes in. It's the percentage of people that notice each ad. This is something that the TAB already had developed for traditional out-of-home called the visibility model, and we've extended it to cover transit. This is also a bit complicated due to the movement of advertising. The biggest challenge is that when the people in the ads are moving, the people have different views of the same ad as it goes by. Some are parallel, some are perpendicular, some are far away, some are close, some are big, some are small. So we have to gather up all of the different formats and all of the names and then figure out how big they are and where they are in order to apply a visibility score. Oh, and by the way, in the case of rail interior, we also have to know how long everybody is riding each rail. And in cases of bus interior, we have to know how long each person is riding each bus. And that also is available through government surveys. So, to give you an example of this application, we'll take rail interior. So each rail car has different types of ads that we collect by market, by vendor. And they're all different sizes and shapes, and we collect all of that too. We know, based on the Transit Authority's own data, how many people are riding the rail car. And we know about where they're going to be inside the rail car, and therefore can determine when they're going to be seeing the ad and how they're going to be seeing the ad. And that's how we would do that for interior bus as well. So each rail car, each ad, each market has different visibility scores that are applied. Oh, and by the way, not all rail cars are the same. Some are big, long, some are wide, some have 2 doors, some have 4 doors, some have many, many different systems, others have very little systems, and some have very little numbers of cars, and some have a lot of cars. We have to know all of that too. The last phase of this is the output, and this is the way that we can review all of the data that are going to be put upon us. The data are going to be reported at the package level. What I mean by that is we're not going to be reporting every single ad as the number of the ad. So it's not going to be ad number 100, this is the number, ad number 200, this is the number. But you can drill down very, very deeply into this database. For example, you can select bus exteriors. and move it over across to the other side of the software. But if that's not good enough, you can select each individual format that the bus exterior gathers. If that's not good enough, you can select, vendors. And if that's not good enough, you can select different demos. Same for stations. We measure in-station advertising. So you can select all the stations, or you can select one station, or you can select one format within one station. So the data are very granular and can be rolled up however we see fit. The output is going to be initially into a TAB testbed system that's user name and password protected that will be handed out, and it works almost exactly the same way as traditional media planning and buying software does for other media. The neat thing about this is it has in the same system all of the traditional billboard information right next to it, so you can compare transit and traditional billboards side by side, and it has blank spaces in there where you can type in your costs, so you can compare all of the costs back and forth. We've had some of this information for a little bit now, and Phil mentioned earlier that sometimes there may be some surprises. But by and large, most of the things that we always thought transit did is being proven through the numbers that we've seen. So we're very excited about that as well. How are you doing so far? The one thing I want to stress here today more than anything else is that this data are all authentic. It is enormous. We're using the Census Bureau, we're using the transit zone numbers, we're using our own visibility models, we're using circulation data that we've already gathered and used for traditional out-of-home. This means that it's not a bunch of people in a dark room monkeying around with these numbers. This is all information that have been gathered either from somewhere else and put together. And under the tutelage of the TAB Technical Committee and the TAB Transit Committee, as well as the chief funders, CBS and Titan, we work together to make sure that authenticity is carried forward. And the other big point is that this data is very localized. Because we're gathering this information at such a granular level by market, you can be assured that whatever market you're purchasing has data specific to that market alone. This is a giant, giant database, by the way. If you're in New York and your lights flicker, that's us moving the data around. So apologize for that. And because of that, this is really groundbreaking research. It's never been done before anywhere. It involves a pretty big slice of the out-of-home pie. We're very excited to be entering this new phase and very excited to be working with all of you to figure out what it all says and what it all means.
I want to start by reiterating why we're so excited about all of this and what we can do with it. Ultimately, this is about proving the effectiveness and the efficiency. Never walk in front of a projector. That's brilliant. About proving the effectiveness and efficiency of the medium and enable you, planners and buyers, to put it in your planning tools. No more for the spreadsheet to the right of the main spreadsheet. We want you to be able to plan it alongside the rest of out-of-home medium and, of course, ultimately, in the major media mix with everything else. So this is why we're excited. This is why we're doing it. We want to make life much easier for our partners, and we want to prove how great transit is within the context of everything else. As Jeff said, there really is a kind of eye-wateringly large amount of data, and which is great because before we didn't really have much. So part of our challenge now is to get through all of this, figure out what's relevant, what works, what we can use, and what's going to be, I'm getting applauded already, that's nice, and what's going to be useful. So for the next couple of slides, I'm going to talk about some of the main themes or some of the early themes that we're seeing in the data so far. I think the thing that really struck us, so there were 4 test markets, LA, San Francisco, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. And in these 4 test markets, the first thing that really struck us was that exterior bus is just an incredible way of building reach. If you need to build reach in a relatively short amount of time and on a relatively modest bus budget, there's really not a better medium to do it than exterior bus. And it kind of makes sense if you imagine for a minute there's a single bus riding through a city. It accumulates a lot of unique eyeballs. Lots of new people are seeing it, but perhaps the frequency isn't so much. Now, if you change that 4-week campaign to an 8-week campaign, if you turn it from a 10 GRP to a 40 GRP, then frequency increases as well. But if you're putting a plan together and you need a short, sharp, relatively inexpensive dose of reach, then bus really seems to be the way to do it. Other stuff that is becoming clear from the data that we've seen so far is that there are real differences by market and media format. I'm going to talk about the media format first. And again, we're really happy about this. We're happy that the individual out-of-home, whether it's transit or other out-of-home media, all of it seems to do something unique and something different. And transit's the same. So I think as planners and buyers and as clients, this is just extra stuff in your toolkit. More stuff to kind of tweak and create the perfect plan. And we're happy that transit can now be part of that process. Big differences by markets as well. As far as reaching TRPs and frequency and reach. 2 markets up at the moment, Chicago and San Francisco. And we think there are big differences because of a handful of reasons. How big is the market? Does the transit authority operate in the whole of the DMA, in the whole of the market, or in just a few of the counties? What's the rival? What's the other out-of-home in the market like? All of these factors change what transit does, and again, transit is an extra bit in the toolkit to enable you to tweak your plans. Almost there. So we've got some challenges ahead of us, some pretty cool challenges actually, and ones that as an industry we've already been through. I think there will be a discrepancy between the numbers that we've been quoting, as Phil said, the decades-old mallet numbers for exterior bus, for example, and the new impressions, in the same way that the bulletin and street furniture us as well, the DECs and the impressions. But we'll get through it. I think we've already kind of got through that corner, got round that corner as an industry anyway. Other challenges that we have to think about are, what do our packages look like? What is an appropriate level of TRP for external bus or for rail? And how do we mix rail with subway with bus, all that kind of stuff? So we're excited about these challenges. We'll be taking them on and hopefully be working with our agency and client partners on it. Final slide. So this is really a timeline. As of June, this beta site that Jeff was talking about, you'll have access to it, and in it will be those 4 test markets. So immediately you'll be able to, in really granular detail, check out reach and frequency for transit, and really start to see how it works alongside other out-of-home formats. In August, 11 transit markets will be in that database and in that beta site. So it'll be the top 10 DMAs minus Houston, as well as Portland and Las Vegas. And then in January, we go live. Exciting. It will be in all the planning tools, but not just those 11 markets, about 50 or 60 transit markets, which is why the rest of this year, as part of this soft launch with the beta site, is so important, because it gives us time to really think about what the data says, how to use it, and to answer any questions. So 3 points we'd like to kind of leave you with, as all good presentations should. Number 1, as in August, 11 transit sites will be in the beta site for you to check out. 2, planners and buyers will be able to plan reach and frequency with transit alongside other out-of-home media for the first time, which we're incredibly excited about. And 3, we need your help. We need you to, and we'd love you to nominate advocates within your agencies during this test phase, during this beta phase, to look at the numbers, to ask us questions, and to help us work our way through it. And so with that, I think we're going to stand slightly awkwardly at the side of the stage and answer any questions you might have for us. Or we're going to sit. We're going to much less awkwardly sit. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Before I turn things over to Dave, who's going to give us his perspective on the transit ratings, I think we should have another round of hearty applause for CBS and Titan for making the commitment and the investment in bringing this new information to us, which is so exciting. Dave?
So we walked in today, and I thought 2 to 4, everybody will be at the pool. This will be quick. My God, it's standing room only. I'm a little nervous now, and we didn't know we were going to be doing the responses, so I thought, I don't have much to say. Transit ratings, this is going to be awesome. So this is, I think, sort of groundbreaking for all of us. For so long, we've been talking about ratings in this business, and now we've got ratings for some of the media. I think what we need is one rating, right? So I think we're all working towards that. I think we've been working towards that for a long time. This is a nice big piece of the puzzle now coming into place, and it's been a long time coming. You know, as I look at this, I think there are going to be a lot of questions. There were a lot of questions when, you know, billboards came online. There are going to be a lot of questions as digital comes online. There are questions that are going to be, I think, answered as all of us sort of navigate our way through it, as all of you navigate our way through it. One of the things I sort of hate is that misnomer of buy side, sell side. I think we all sell, I think we all buy, I think we all plan, I think we all, you know, we do our part within this industry. But what I ultimately believe is that we've got a responsibility to be as smart as, at least as smart as our peers within other media. And for so long, it's not that we haven't been as smart. I think we've been as scrappy, as savvy, as diplomatic as possible. What we've lacked is ratings. And so here we have the opportunity now to have the piece of the puzzle that hasn't been there. Transit is an important piece of the toolbox that we all utilize every day. And yet what we're doing is combining tab ratings with impressions with other things. And I think what we need is one rating. So again, this is another piece of that. What I think we will start to see, what I hope we will start to see, is that we start to buy by audience. We start to talk about audience instead of campaigns, or we start to plan by campaign. I think you're starting to see that now, so that we can have an honest conversation. And you know, what I'm saying is not new. This is not, we've been having this conversation for a long time, but as we take every step closer to getting there, what I'd like to, what I hope to, what I believe we'll do is actually do that. And maybe what it needs to be is that we stop having the conversations and we just start doing it, right? So it's got to be that we start selling. We start actually going about the selling side of this. And I think it's sort of a harder than you know, having these panel discussions. We actually need to go out now and start using what we have in front of us. And that is pushing our agencies, not having nice, discrete discussions with our agencies. It is forcing the hand of. It is, you've got the tools in front of you guys, now use it. Or we'll go talk to your clients. We'll do it for you. Let's have that discussion. So I know this is a little bit broader than transit in general. I'm really happy that transit has come on board. This is a really important step. This is a bigger industry thing, though. I think we need to make this work now for everybody, because a lot of money's been invested and we're here now. So let's go do this and make it work. So that's my point of view. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions for the presenters?
I actually have a point.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ray.
I totally agree with what David was saying. I think as quickly as we can to begin to talk about audience delivery and delivering on audience, I think is absolutely necessary into where we want this industry to go. But to further this along a little bit, I think, you know, I feel kind of like a 10-year-old on Christmas Day. I've just opened up my presents and this is fantastic. But now I'm also thinking of next Christmas, right? So to you guys, where are we going next, and where is the next level of measurement with regards to consumer impact? So what does this mean? Ratings are great, but ratings are one part of the whole process. Ratings are one part of what we need. You know, we've seen that on TV, we've seen that in other media formats where it's all about, and I don't want to use the word engagement because that's been so overused in this business, it's ridiculous, but how are we going to measure what really the impact is on the consumer and what it means to the consumer? Are we driving an action? Are we driving something going forward? So what's the next thing as we go forward?
I think there are lots of different ways we can do that, and I think we need to get the audience measurement bit down, and then we can think about impact. So a station domination, for example, you know, we believe that it's more than the sum of its parts, that it has an impact, that it's large and will you know, create all kinds of positive emotions and actions with the consumer. So I think it's down to us as media owners to constantly research things that we do, figure out what it is that you and your clients want to achieve, and commit to that more and more. Other things help us. figure out engagement. You were going to say the word you didn't want to. Things like mobile help us with that. Interactions from posters, seeing posters as a conduit into all kinds of different experiences, which gives us other measures of success. So I think there are lots of ways to do it, and I think we have to be committed to it.
Actually, Dave, if I could ask the panel also, to your point, if we are going to look at qualitative assessments for things like station domination, do you guys think that's something that we handle on the agency level within our own teams, or something we look to the industry to provide something that's more standard?
I think there's both. I think it starts with a standard, and then you take it back to the agency, and that's where obviously all the secret sauce comes in on our side of the business. But I don't know how anybody else feels in the panel, but I think we both have to approach it.
Ray, I would
Sorry,
comment that I think the opportunity for us is actually, now that we're going to have audience information that's more robust and we can really drill down, my expectation is we're going to do a better job of actually figuring out how to target that audience and get at it. And I think with new clients that are interested in saying, I want to see how this works, we're probably more interested in partnering to do those studies, with our clients to see what the results are. I don't doubt that.
I think that's great. And Phil, just to piggyback off of one thing you said as well, you'd mentioned that the selling process is not going to change very much. I think that's comforting in one way, and it's also kind of scary in another way. How are you preparing your teams now to talk about audience and delivering on audience?
That's good.
Is there training? Is there, what are you doing from that perspective? Because I think we have to, as an industry, need to get away. And this is part and parcel of what we're talking about, get away from an advertising discussion and into a marketing discussion. And that's all about our advertising.
And I would actually add, I think you may mention that there would be perhaps some package changes, but I think you're going to find that there are a lot of changes that are going to be expected then once you start to see how the audience becomes defined much differently than it already is today, or you're defining it today.
And as I said, we don't know yet. And I'll underscore what I said was, I don't expect to see change. That doesn't mean one won't occur.
Right.
I'm thinking that there are certain things that have proven to be useful and reliable just because of the advertisers that renew and have been happy with their program. So when I say there's a certain a level of, let's say, buses that it takes to impact the marketplace that we consider the minimum, we just have had experience where when we don't run that level, they never renew. And when we've hit that basic level, they tend to come back and we renew and we have positive experiences. So my sense are that numbers will come up and tell us what that was, but that level probably is still the minimum. Mm-hmm. And it may not be. It's just my expectation. And then as we see the data and the experiences, we will adjust as the clients need, because I always believe that the clients tell us what they need, and then we respond to make it real.
Yes, Claire?
Will we be able to do GRPs within the transit by package or by units? Will we be able to mix together the different...
I want to answer this quickly because I think because of time we need to move on to the next topic. The answer is yes. The answer is you're going to be looking at packages. Those packages will be able to combine formats, both within transit and across transit and other out-of-home media. So you can look at one transit platform and another working together, or transit and working in combination to poster advertising or billboard campaigns working in combination.
Yeah, the one comment I'd like to make, obviously I agree with my fellow panelists that, there's no controversy here. This is something that we really need to celebrate. And I applaud the efforts of the community that's been helping to put that together. What I would put out there to the seller community is, challenge us with those questions, like walk into our offices and say, instead of just extolling the merits of the transit systems, talk about audiences, ask us what are our reach goals, who are your core demos, because those are the kind of conversations that start getting the interest of the planning teams that you're always asking us access to. But when you don't ask them those questions, they don't know what to do with the information that you're sharing with them. So challenge us with those audience-based questions, because most of our clients are reach-based planning. They're planning based on GRPs. So if you guys start pushing us in that direction, we then in turn funnel that up to our planning teams and get you guys that access that you've been looking for.
Yeah, and I agree with my fellow panelists as well. And as we move forward to having those audience-based discussions, I'm thinking beyond the planning and the buying aspect of it, but how operationally are you preparing your teams internally so that you can deliver upon execution?
One of the things that we've been doing with the transit reps, and I know Titan want to respond as well, is that we have the outdoor ratings now. So the transit people have been taught and have been trained on that level of detail as it relates to the place-based traditional bulletins and things like that. But they haven't had the opportunity to use anything yet as it relates to transit, so they will be rusty and they won't be clear. And so our training is going to continue now that this stuff rolls out so that we can get them in the right spot. So they can come in and ask the right questions that Norm has asked. We've got to get to the bottom of what's the demo, who are we going after, how does it fit, and then what can we propose that will fit that ask.
And I just think that we envisage massive change, up from for the whole infrastructure of how we access the data, how we manage it, how it relates to our avails, how that relates to packages. I mean, it's going to be a fundamental change, we think, but an exciting one and a necessary one.
Sorry, just one quick question. Are there any formats within the transit category that are not covered or won't be measured?
The ones that we measure are ones that are very standard across all of the different systems. So if there's always going to be kings, there's always going to be queens, there's always going to be 1 sheets and 2 sheets. When you start getting into areas that are very, very different by market, like a station domination, for example, that's pretty hard to put into a hard number against in the system. But we do have a way to estimate how to get a station domination number. Because we're measuring everything at such a granular level, there's a way for us to roll everything up. So working together, we can figure that one out.
Jeff, would that also apply to custom routed vehicles like mobile billboards?
Yes.
Thanks. Great. Well, I think everyone in this room is very excited about the new data, and thanks, everyone.
Jeff's quick yes, I'm going to just expand on because it was a great question. What we can do for transit means that we can now expand to other forms of moving advertising. So in addition to transit, we'll be able to measure mobile billboards, for example.